And then I've got 5 other plays to just say. I just want to give you an idea, and people who watch this, of how my mind works. So I mentioned name plays. So I'm going to have a play called Theodore. And Theodore is going to be one of those things that's sort of like, I have a book called Helena Quinn Malley, where it's a series of short stories that forms a novel of plays, because we never really see, we basically have only 1 or 2 minor scenes for about a paragraph or 2 where the character is actually seen in flashback. And this is something Daphne du Maurier, the writer of The Birds, had used in some of her writings. And also Daphne du Maurier did Rebecca. That's her most famous book. And Rebecca is like that too. It's a character in cameo that the character doesn't really appear. So I said, what happens if I have a play that is named after a character, but the character doesn't appear until the very last moment of the play? So Theodore is going to not be in the play except the very last moment, but he's going to be at all. And this is going to have a very much Daphne du Maurier, Citizen Kane kind of feel to it. Also, Repulsion by the film by what's his name is Polanski is an influence on that. So that's the name play where the main character name wise doesn't appear until the last moment of the last scene of the last act of the play. And then I'm going to have another name play about a woman that I worked with at the supermarket that I've mentioned here in Texas called Maydeen, which this is a woman who about a decade ago we became friends after we sort of bonded when her brother was killed walking along a highway by a drunk driver who just spun out of control. And we became friends. I tried to get Jess to be friends with her, whatnot. And so I'm going to have her a play based upon that and her. Then I'm going to take that character, Maydeen, and have her be half of a play that I'm calling A Matter of Propinquity. And this is the idea that most people are friends of propinquity to each other, i.e., you grow up next to the kid next door, you become his friend. You go to school with someone, you become a friend. You take a job, and you become a friend with someone. But then when you move away, or you go to a different school, or you get a different job, they sort of fall away, because the closeness you share with them is only a physical closeness in the universe. It isn't a deep relational closeness. I was just talking about this kind of thing when I did an interview earlier today about free will. But so what if I take the Maydeen from that other play and this male friend, and I sort of contrast these two friends who have over the years slowly started drifting apart from me. I moved away from Minnesota from my male friend, and he sort of drifted apart from me. And the Maydeen character has moved to another state. And I'm still 2 or 3 times a year in contact with her by email, and doing a play about friendship, not sexual lust, not mother and father, not child to child or sibling to sibling, but about friends. There are so few plays, not only about working class people, but about real human friendships. And so these are some of these dramatic situations I want to tackle. So that's that play. And the final 2 plays I'll mention. There's, well, I mentioned this crazy gal who's been a con artist, who's been lying about her life and claiming all this shit about me and other people and whatnot. So I'm going to eventually do a play about her. But that might be a year or 2 down the line. But I've got the beginnings of an outline. And so the last play is another name play that I'm going to call Janie Fitz. And this is about this girl that I did mention in True Life when she had an argument with a boyfriend. The boyfriend kicked her out of her car in the middle of a snowstorm, and I basically, came along, walking along, put my jacket on. I walked her to her home, and we ended up in the sack one night. And then she went back to the boyfriend who kicked her out of the car. And so it's, as I said, these are ways for me to examine certain things about life, whether it's human relationships, whether it's this, that, or the other thing. So that gives you an idea of the plays that are coming. Now, in these 15 plays, it wouldn't shock me that some of these plays, like I mentioned, this crazy woman that are going to be a year up, some of these plays, maybe 3 or 4 of these plays I won't get to for a year, but another 4 or 5 plays will come in the interim, and another few other plays too. But it's sort of, you just have to keep the mind and the wheels turning. Think about things. And that's another reason too, is I want to write these personal plays because even though I wrote True Life, I had to distance myself. And even though there are episodes there of great emotion, these plays, like these last two plays I wrote, the Exteriors ending and the Big Al's Gina ending, I think are emotionally powerful, and it's not cheap melodramatic power. It's not. It's not. I'm a drunk. This isn't Raymond Carver O'Neill territory. This goes deeper. And when you see this next play that I'm writing too, that's going to have the absurdism that starts at the vicious absurdism. It's going to be a real kick-ass start to the play. It's again bringing things in, not being afraid. I mentioned how there's a scene in Exteriors where I have, well, I didn't mention it, but I will mention it now, where I have the Cassie character and the Danny character start off talking on cell phones, and then about a third of the way through that scene, they put the cell phones down and they come together in sort of a fantasy scene where they're remembering their night together. And so they start sort of making out and fondling each other on stage. And again, if a character or an actor or a director didn't want to, let's say, expose the breast or stick their hands down the pants of the male character, that's perfectly fine. But it's saying that you can go that far if you need to do that to convey that in these two characters.